Welcome to the Worst of the Riot podcast. Coming up, when is it ever okay to lie on your resume?
And how the United States disrespected their very first president. And more on the Worst of the Riot podcast.
You won't hear a show like this anywhere else. And that's probably for the best. The Worst of the Riot, Radio U.
I think I got a new rule of thumb here. Rule of thumb. If you've drank enough that you're considering putting your entire body into a giant urn, you've drank too much. Can you roll with that?
I think if in any area of life you're deciding to get into a giant urn, it's probably a bad idea.
Well, my thought is that most sober people wouldn't ever think to get into a giant urn.
Well, you got to think. Have you ever been around a giant urn? If you can fit inside of something weird, you're going to jump in it.
You're tempted, aren't you? Especially if you're a genie or a snake. Because that's usually what's inside giant pottery.
Like if it was anything that's oversized, you're going to try to see if you can fit inside of it. Like it could be like a large French fry cup. I wonder if a human could fit in that. I'm going to get in it.
Well, the problem with that thought process, it has now been borne out online because we have a guy here, Connor Padgett. It actually happened at a New Year's party. So obviously drinks were flowing. He wasn't the only one that had too much, but he was the only one at this party that decided to get into a giant urn. But the problem is once he got in, he could not get out. And so there's now video, you can find it online, of this kid. He's trapped from about the waist down in a giant urn, a giant vase. And he could not get out. And so many questions do emerge. How did he get in there if he wasn't able to get out is one of my main ones. One a lot of people asked is, then once he got stuck, why not simply break the urn?
Well, that's what ended up happening.
That is eventually what ended up happening, but it took them based off of the videos, it took them a surprisingly long time to get to that.
Well, because you don't want to break the giant urn. That's probably really expensive.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
I'm sure they were like, "Can you just get out of it like you got in?"
Yeah.
We're not going to go breaking this urn.
To which he responds in the video with plenty of expletives and saying, "I've tried." You know, he's like, "My knees are stuck." Everybody's like, yeah, his knees, that was the problem. His knees were in there, and your knees aren't made of jelly. His knees weren't made of jelly, although, yet again, how did he get those knees inside the urn? So, but
sometimes you can get into things you can't get out of.
Clearly.
Think about putting on a ring, you know? Sometimes that ring slides on real nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't slide off nearly as nice.
Yeah, so I don't know. I am curious. Do you think they tried, like, buttering him up? They tried buttering the urn? There's no video of that.
Well, I don't think it was his stomach that was the issue. It was his knees inside. He couldn't get them straight. He couldn't stand up.
Yeah.
Because his knees were so cooked up in there.
You know what? I've been in a similar situation, actually. Now, granted, I was like 7 years old, but I got myself trapped in like coils of cable where they were all, wrapped around in a circle, and I got myself down in, and you like crunch down your knees, and then I couldn't get out.
So you got stuck in a giant slinky?
Well, it was similar, yes.
Yes.
I guess it was more like it wasn't as bouncy, but yes, big spools of cable.
The other thing that's wild is you think about like New Year's Eve, what a fun night like you get to have.
Yeah.
And he ruined his entire New Year's Eve by making this joke. It feels like an I think you should leave skit. He's like, I can't get out of the urn. I can't get out. And then you're in it the whole night of New Year's Eve.
I think you should leave. He would be the one saying, no, you can't break it.
Yeah.
He would be the one. I have one last question. Who would you rather be? Because yesterday we talked about the Bass Pro Shop's naked guy.
Oh, this dude 100%.
This guy's better than the Bass Pro Shop's guy?
Yeah, because I'm not going to jail.
Nobody does it better. The Riot, Radio U.
But yesterday was a big day for space. After an 8-month delay, a rocket was sent into space by Texas-based company Celestis, and that rocket included the remains of 330 people. So those people, after their death, they now get to remain in space, possibly forever.
That had to be an expensive setup.
Yeah.
For their fam?
Well, it depends. Like some of the remains belong to George Washington. Maybe you've heard of him.
He didn't think he was going to space.
Yeah, he didn't even know what space
away.
was. It was, what was it, 1700s? George
Yeah,
Washington
exactly.
was around?
He was thinking, bury me in the ground. He wasn't even thinking cremation, I don't think.
No, yeah. He probably thought that the sun revolved around the earth.
So now we're just blasting him wherever we want. We just own George Washington now?
Yeah, are we allowed to do that?
That seems kind of unethical.
It's too late
Who's
now.
Who's signed off on that?
I don't know who's in charge of that. But who's in charge of George Washington's remains? But he's one of the people. I have to imagine they didn't blast all of George Washington into space.
Well, also this, George Washington was for sure buried into the ground.
Yeah.
How did they get him? I mean, do I have to even finish the sentence?
Yeah. No,
in the rocket?
I had a similar thought. I was like, I'm actually impressed that they were able to preserve George Washington for this long in those days. I know the Egyptians, like thousands of years ago, were mummifying people, but how much of that knowledge carried over to the, revolutionary United States era, revolutionary era?
I'm going to say zero. I'm going to say zero.
I didn't think they were preserving people that well.
His casket?
But evidently.
This feels so wrong.
But he wasn't the only one.
This is illegal, actually.
There's 329 other folks that had their remains blasted into space, including the creator. This is fitting. The creator of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry. His remains
he might have
also
signed up for that.
It seems like something he might have wanted. JFK also.
Maybe he signed up for it. How do you get on this list? Who asked
Space
you
was
this?
a pretty big thing when JFK, because that was shortly before we went to space.
Yeah.
To the moon. So he might have been into it. Probably a big NASA fan. I don't know. Guess I could read up on that. But yeah, and then 327 other people who are probably less famous now have their remains in space as well, thanks to this company sending them into space with the inaugural Celestis' inaugural Enterprise flight.
Yeah, it just feels wrong. Like, it feels like we're just doing whatever we want with people.
I mean, George Washington notwithstanding, I think most of the other ones, probably them or their families, their surviving families, have probably signed off, agreed to this, thought it was a cool idea.
Yeah, I know they think it's a cool idea, but I also could see many of these guys and gals being like, I want to be buried where I grew up.
Yeah.
Where I lived. I want in my own backyard. That's where I made all my memories. Put me in the ground.
I really don't
here.
think anybody. I don't think anybody they shot into space. I don't think they had that accent. If I had to guess,
I would say George Washington probably pretty close to that.
He probably sounded British. I would think.
And you don't think that he was one of those guys that was like, put me in the ground here, where I created this country?
Well, I mean, at what point does the statute of limitations, expire?
I guess once you're like,
yeah.
I guess once you're just like a 300-year-old person, then you're just like essentially a character that we've just created. We can just do whatever we want with.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Who's going to stop us?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to be? Would you want any of your remains to go into space? Set the record straight right now.
I would say no. So 300 years from now, if you try to set me up there, know that I did not consent to this.
You
have me on the record.
This is Radio U's Worst of the Riot.
Some big NBA news. Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors has been reinstated in the NBA. You go back in time a few weeks, you might remember he was suspended indefinitely after an incident on the court where he swung around wildly and hit another player, Jusuf Nurkic, in the face. And that was enough for the NBA to finally say, look, this keeps seeming to be a problem with you. We're going to suspend you indefinitely. You're going to need to get some anger management, some impulse control treatment. And so he has, and now he's been reinstated. Now he claims on his podcast that he threatened to retire during this suspension. He said that he told the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, this is too much for me. I'm going to retire. And Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, talked him out of it.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
What, do you think he's being dramatic?
The league said, can you just stop punching and choking people?
Yeah.
And Draymond is like, this is too much. I got to get out of here. I need to retire. Like he's pulling the victim card?
Yeah.
Like it seems like a for sure cop-out to me rather than someone who's actually learned from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about, Draymond? I think I'm just going to have to hang it up after all these incidents and suspensions, and I just can't stop playing basketball the way that I do.
Yeah. It's like you get caught like cheating by your girlfriend and you're like, if you're going to keep looking at my phone, then I'm just going to break up with you. That's exactly what he's doing.
That's spot on.
And Adam Silver called him on. He says, you're making a rash decision and I won't let you do that. He's just really proving the point. Draymond showing that he can't keep his emotions in check, goes on to not keep his emotions in check. Makes an emotional decision. Fortunately, he was talked out of it, but now he's back. What do you think happens next? Because what do you think the odds are that he doesn't punch or kick somebody?
Yeah, exactly.
Before the season's end.
What is going on here? What is the next move? Where do you go from this?
Yeah.
We've got obviously multiple suspensions, a rash of just horrible basketball, of him swinging, kicking, screaming, and now it's come full circle to, I don't know if I can play if I can't be bad. So what does he do now? Where do we go with Draymond here?
They say that the NBA and him are going to continue on having regular check-ins. I don't know if that means him and the commissioner. He's still going to continue to get some kind of treatment or counseling or whatever to try to keep his anger in check. I guess I'm hopeful for his sake because he's actually a good player, as annoying as he is. And you want people to play the game the right way. But at the same time, I don't know that I really, really believe. It doesn't sound like he is particularly remorseful or has really learned a whole heck of a lot.
Like he's 33 years old. He's acting like a big baby.
Yeah.
He's acting like a child who's been punished, and now he's pouting and saying, you know what? I'll just take my ball and go. I'm just not going to play anymore. Show everybody else. Draymond, you're a grown man.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you got in trouble for doing the wrong thing. Time to strap it back up and go play basketball the way that you should be playing it the entire time.
I know basketball is an emotional game, but it's not that hard to not kick and hit and choke people.
Everyone else in the league has found a way to do it. You can do it.
Oh, hi there.
This worst of the riot.
Crank that up.
Radio U.
New year, new job. You're out there looking for somewhere else to work. And then the question becomes, filling out a resume, is it ever okay to lie? Not even lie about fudge the numbers on qualifications. He said, make up a master's degree. Nobody's going to check.
I like the audacity. That's a lot of audacity.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. So, I mean, where do you stand on this? Have you been lying about your college degree this entire time?
No, I have not lied on my resume yet. I have not. But I don't hate what he's saying. I think that maybe he's went a little bit farther than I would be comfortable with it. I'm not lying about a master's degree.
No, yeah, that's crazy.
Because for the main reason, if nothing else, I don't want to have the conversation. I don't want to ever be in the position where I have to have the conversation of, we just called and you don't have this or you don't have that. That's the conversation that I don't want to have. But I think at the same time, I'm not going to lie about places I've worked, but skills, people often lie about skills.
Yes.
If you think that you are competent in Microsoft Excel until you've seen someone who actually knows how to use Microsoft Excel, they're competent. We are not competent in Microsoft Excel. What's it on my resume?
But who doesn't put that on their resume?
Exactly. If you think you're competent in this, that, or whatever, they're going to teach you when you get there what you actually need to know.
Yeah, I would say my best advice would be you can put anything on your resume that you think you can back up in an interview. So if they do, I guess if they ask you about your master's degree in an interview and you made it up, you might be able to squeeze through on that. But eventually I feel like that's going to come to light.
It's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, eventually. But when it again comes to skills, when it comes to numbers of certain things, you can, I think, fudging them a little bit to pump them up isn't the worst thing. I think that the other thing you have to keep in mind with resumes is that not only do you have to consider like what qualifications you're putting on there, but you also have to consider that many places, and this guy probably would agree with this, many places never even look at your resume personally.
Yep.
They're just looking at all the keywords, having some AI or whatever look at all the keywords. And so you actually have to think about that more than the real substance of your resume, depending on what you're applying for.
Yeah, many a times, like this is the crazy thing though, is when I've applied to my jobs, they have reached out to my references. I know for a fact because my references tell me. They're like, hey, just talk to wherever. Are you thinking about going here?
Mm-hmm.
Which happened here at RadioU. They did reach out to my references. I know they did. And so when I think about him saying they don't reach out to him, I don't want to be put in a position where that could possibly happen to me. But I think skills-wise, you can tell if you have something or if you don't, even if maybe your resume shouldn't say that you have proficiency in this because you don't have a actual qualification for it, but you feel as if you can do it. If you feel you can get the job done, then put it on there.
I think we got to bring this back because people are chiming in with their thoughts. So let us know what you think. Is it ever okay to lie in your resume? 8772 Radio U. And we'll get to some of the responses coming up next.
Radio U's Worst of the Riot podcast.
Is it ever okay to lie on your resume? Because there's a big debate going on. This is the time of year for it, too. So many people updating their resumes, trying to find a new job for the new year. And so we've got people chiming in. People like Gabe, who says that let your yes be yes and your no be no. He says his employers have always checked his references. So you can get caught, but then, I mean, I guess you could just have references that will lie for you. Also, I was taught to not put references.
That's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because if they want now, if employers want your references, they will ask for them.
Interesting.
Tiffany also says that it's not fair to lie on your resume. It's not fair to the people who actually have the qualifications. If a company doesn't check your qualifications, then is that a job you want to work at? You really wanted me to answer that, Tiffany? Depends how much they pay. You know, also, though, and this is somebody, I saw somebody say this online, is that bosses, like when they're putting out, and I think a lot of us know this, when they're putting out the job postings, they're saying, they're asking for unrealistic qualifications, especially based on many jobs for the pay that they're planning on giving you. Recruiters are honest about this, is that they put out unrealistic expectations, knowing that it's unlikely they'll be able to find somebody that meets those. But then that weeds out the people that are clearly unqualified because they'll just see all of this list and go, well, I know I don't have all of that. And then the people that are closer, maybe they lie, maybe they're at least close enough, but at least they put their name in the running. But good comments for sure. It is something to think about. Let's see who else was checking in. Jason says, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Jason, you dirty dog.
You dirty dog.
Zach says, what would radio DJs lie about on their resume? The best part about my resume is there's so many things on it that could be such a sham that you would never be able to unprove.
So, I mean, in a lot of lines of work, and radio is probably one of them, it's unprovable. It's just an unprovable mess.
I can think of multiple of them on my resume right now.
But
the radio you could have never verified. There's no chance they could have ever verified.
If we want to make this more like, if you want to get into the radio world, our resume, even though we do create resumes, our real resume is our tape. I guess you wouldn't call it a tape now. Like an air check is the industry term, and that's like the clips of us doing radio stuff. And even that is fakeable. So to make it sound like you actually know what you're doing. So in radio, it is tough. It's kind of hard to know if somebody's any good.
How do you think we got hired?
Yeah, that's right. Until you actually force them to do it. So, I hope to be good one day.
Billy said, no way I'm lying about a master's degree. I used to be a manager, and it was easy to spot out people that were not telling the truth on their resume. Plus, I don't want to be 5 years into my job and just immediately fired if someone rats me out. Can you imagine? At what point is it like, if I am a total sham, I've never worked in radio, whatever the career is before, and then somebody rats me out, like, do I get fired today?
It depends what it is.
It depends on the job, I think.
don't know if you're following the news, but I think it's similar along the same lines. Like the Harvard president had to step down in part because she was caught plagiarizing stuff when she was in college. And so I think that's along the similar lines, right? Where you can get, and obviously that's a higher profile job. But I think it's similar where if you get caught, it depends what you get caught for. The statute of limitations might never run out on lying.
Yeah, it's definitely
a big risk, big reward.
It's a twisty subject. If you want to lie on your resume, you can lie.
The stories you love with the opinions you hate. The Riot Radio U.
The Alaskan Airlines flight where the door blew off of the flight shortly after takeoff over the weekend. But we've got another story regarding that that's actually pretty impressive. And that is that when that door, which now they're also, by the way, saying is not a door. They're saying it's like they call it a plug. It's not technically a door, as if that makes a difference. The door that blew off of that Alaska Airlines plane took with it an iPhone. That iPhone fell from the sky, from that airplane, 16,000 feet to the ground. And you know why we're talking about this? Because the iPhone survived.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How?
It was because of Apple's creativity, workmanship, fine engineering, and just the quality of materials. That phone was able to survive a 16,000-foot skydive.
No.
Without a parachute. They found it still working.
No.
They did.
I'm looking at this phone. It's not even cracked. I've dropped my phone out of my pocket to the floor, and the screen has cracked. This iPhone screen, not cracked. You expect me, you take me for a fool if you think that I really believe this fell out of a plane, landed on the side of a road, and didn't even crack.
The person who found it, they, like you, skeptical that it would come from a plane. How could it survive? Basically unscathed. There was a few minor issues with it, but the phone did not have a screen lock on it. So opened it up, and it was on airplane mode with a travel confirmation and a baggage claim from Alaska Flight 1282. It doesn't get much more clear-cut than that, does it? How else would that phone get there?
I'm just in disbelief that the screen isn't cracked.
What better ad for Apple than this?
Incredible.
This is the ultimate drop test. You could shoot this phone out of a cannon. It seems like it would still survive. It'd still be functional at the end of the day.
The wild part is, too, as this person found this phone, they were able to open it up and get to the mail where they have the Alaska Airlines baggage receipt.
Yeah.
The crazy part for me is this person had no Face ID, no lock.
Yeah, that's crazy,
no password. Too. You just let them just open your phone.
Just let anybody have your phone. You're lucky this guy returned it and just keep it. Yeah. Factory reset.
I mean, he really was going through your mail.
Yeah. Think about all the bank passwords he probably... well, it seems like you don't even have passwords. Yeah.
This is how he figured out whose phone it was. He went through their mail to get to Alaska Airlines baggage receipt.
Yeah.
What else had he gone through at that point?
That's right.
And he didn't find out who the phone was before he got to the mail.
What else had he accidentally seen?
Snooping through your phone, I think.
Well.
He could have just called the first number in the contacts. It says Dad.
I'm going to say in 2024, if you don't have any kind of screen lock on your phone, shame on you for what happens after you drop it out of a plane.
If you like that video, there's a ton more. Go check out our past videos and subscribe so you don't miss what we do next.